It was widely understood that the present system to distribute spectrum was flawed. And the only question is, what could you do better? There's a real sense of mission there, really something that was making a contribution to the public interest of the country and this very valuable industry. I joined NTIA in 1989 as the deputy administrator. Spectrum auctions had been bouncing around as an issue for a while. The tools the FCC had to assign those licenses were becoming increasingly obviously deficient. They started doing so-called beauty contests, which were comparative hearings, which took a couple of years to do the first 30 licenses. So they were distributing over 700 cellular licenses. So at that rate, it would take about 50, 60 years to license the service. And that's when they went to lotteries, convinced Congress to give them that authority. Well, that had its problems too. When you assign the licenses, then you'd have to spend a couple of years because, the dentist down the corner would win one, and he's not going to do anything with them. And so eventually they had to be distributed to people who could use them. You ended up with very valuable property being distributed on the basis of this rather messy system. The only question is, what could you do better? How could you do it better? John Dingell, who was chairman of the Commerce Committee, very powerful legislator, came up with the idea in his staff to take 200 megahertz of spectrum from the government, give it to the FCC for assignment. And at NTIA, our traditional posture on things like that was to oppose it because we were protective of the federal agencies. But in this case, we decided to take a position that we would support transferring the spectrum over if we got the FCC the authority to use auctions to distribute it. We thought we'd get a trial going and the virtues of it would be manifest. During the Bush administration, there were budget cuts and new taxes, but it also included a pay-go provision. So for future spending, you had to offset it with either cuts in other programs or new revenues. And everyone was very eager to find new sources of revenue that weren't involved raising taxes. So this made the auction program especially appealing. The administration changed in 92, 93. I had a talk with folks from the White House on this and thinking I would have to try to explain to them why this was a good idea, but I got 30 seconds in and they said, we're in favor of that. Each auction has a set of rules about the service that influence greatly how the auction will take place and how people will bid. And those are hotly contested. There were debates within the commission when I was there, how rapidly you should close an auction, what the closing rules should be, what minimum bids should be. Their first auction was designed for nationwide paging, and narrowband PCS they called it. They designed something fairly simple, 10 licenses. By the time you got to PCS, you had hundreds of licenses, an auction being auctioned off simultaneously. I think people were shocked. It's probably not too strong a word. It's just how valuable these mobile licenses were. We went from talking about millions to hundreds of millions to billions in the space of 2 years. So it very quickly became viewed as the dominant way to distribute spectrum. This was a good idea, a compelling, theoretical economic case for it. And then it's been applied and used in a way to address a real practical problem that has had huge benefits, putting U.S. really at the front of this cutting-edge technology, producing revenues that can help reduce either deficits or fund new spending. This is one case where a good idea found the right opportunity, found the right need, and has delivered for the American people.